Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Alex and Deus Talk Football. Today, of course, we cannot forget what happened last week, and of course, looking forward to next week. We're talking about obviously Champions League semifinal. Alex, the first leg, we already talked about Athletic Madrid, Arsenal 1-1. But the main focus here is, for me, the game of the century. Paris Saint-Germain 5, Bayern Munich 4. What to expect next week with Luis Enrique coaching Paris, trying to go for a double of the Champions League, and Vincent Kompany trying to make history and trying to win the treble in Bayern Munich.
Well, it was football from another planet, wasn't it? I have to go back to last week. Bayern playing brilliantly, PSG winning by 1 goal more. A game for the ages, people have been calling it, yeah? A game of the century. And I have to say, when it was 5 for PSG, it looks as if the tie was over. But Bayern came back and scored 2 goals in 4 minutes, and that keeps the tie alive. And there was this sudden shift in the momentum. Suddenly Bayern were back. And don't forget, both teams had hit the woodwork during the game. We would have had more goals if those efforts had gone in. So the margins were razor thin margins, yeah? I mean, let's stick a little bit with PSG. Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Doué, pace, fluidity, sometimes unplayable for defenders. Give them space and they'll destroy you, as Bayern saw. Let me just mention Luis Enrique, the PSG coach. He's the fastest coach to have reached 50 Champions League victories, and that is something that Klopp, for instance, hasn't managed. And a lot of people forget that Luis Enrique already won the Champions League 11 years ago when he was in charge of Barcelona, 2015, where he had Messi, where he had Suarez, where he had Neymar. And there, too, you have the same sort of elite strikers, elite attacking teams in different eras.
Let's talk about that, Alex, because you're saying elite at 2015, elite. We're going to say last year because it's when Luis Enrique won the Champions League with Paris. Let's go at the time, player by player, with a lineup of Luis Enrique's Barcelona in 2015. Let's do the lineup in the final, and the lineup, of course, Paris last year when they beat Inter Milan for Inter Milan for 5. Incredible. I would say the most unmatched, unbalanced final. I wasn't expecting it of 5-0. So on the goal, who do you prefer, Ter Stegen 2015 Barcelona or Donnarumma?
Donnarumma, definitely Donnarumma. The size of him. Over 2 meters tall. Just amazing.
We go
Nuno Mendes, today's PSG side.
Center back Javier Mascherano, we all remember, adapted as a center back even from before the era of Luis Enrique. Or in Paris, the guy that nobody talked about in Frankfurt, William Pacho.
Pacho. For me, Pacho.
Gerard Piqué, Barcelona, or Marquinhos, Paris Saint-Germain.
Marquinhos. Brazilian legend, Marquinhos, of today's PSG side.
Let's go to the right back, Dani Alves, a legend, one of the most title guys in football history, over 40 titles, Dani Alves, competing with Messi even. Dani Alves or last year, Hakimi.
That's a really difficult one, but I think because of the history and all the records, I think it's got to be Dani Alves.
Dani Alves. Okay, let's go to the midfield. I think in the midfield, this is going to get... Let's see, what's your opinion? Sergio Busquets, the legend, or João Neves?
Well, again, on history, it's Busquets, one of the best midfielders ever. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that Neves won't grow and become a legend himself. But if you're asking me at the moment who I rate better, it's Busquets.
So, and now Rakitic, because in the Champions League final, Xavi, who then left Barcelona, he left Barcelona to go play in Asia. He was on the bench. Rakitic played in the lineup. Rakitic or Fabian Ruiz?
I'd say it's even there. Rakitic, we knew from the Bundesliga, he used to play for Schalke. I never thought he'd make it at Barcelona the way he did. But Rakitic actually became a big name at Barcelona. Fabian Ruiz, I'd say 1-1 there. I don't see much difference yet. Maybe Ruiz will overtake him. I don't know. But it is pretty even there for me.
The great Iniesta or the wonderful Vitinha?
It has to be Iniesta, the man who won the World Cup. who scored the winner in 2010 against the Netherlands. Legendary players, you're telling me here. Legendary. Iniesta. It has to be Iniesta. Still time, though, for Vitinha to become an Iniesta.
Let's go to the front three. I think there will be no debate. On the right, Lionel Messi or the Ballon d'Or 2025, Ousmane Dembele.
No question. It's got to be Messi. But I think Dembele would win against any other player apart from Messi.
On the left, Neymar or Barcola.
It's got to be Neymar, one of the best players I've ever seen. Neymar, brilliant Brazilian. Absolutely, Neymar, 100%.
And as a number 9, he's not a number 9, but he was the man of the match in the final last year. We're going to talk about Luis Suarez, the Uruguayan vampire, elite player. He could have won a Ballon d'Or too, Luis Suarez, or the man of the match, the golden boy last year, Désiré Doué.
I think Doué. You can't
Over
speak.
Suarez.
You can't speak about Suarez without remembering his antics and his little skirmishes that we had for certain actions. I think that taints his name a little bit. A world-class striker, absolutely. But for me, Doué, the more complete player.
Well, Luis Enrique from 2015 or the Luis Enrique from 2025?
Very difficult. Very difficult. No answer there. No answer. I can't pick. I can't come up with a choice. But I'd like to say something.
Different era, different league.
Different era, different league. But Luis Enrique excelling 11 years ago and in our times by building two elite teams. And I don't think there are too many coaches who've managed to do that in different eras. That's the amazing thing. That's the point I really want to make. So that puts Luis Enrique really right up there. I can't think of another coach who built two massively impressive sides with these forward lines with such a different space time between them. Luis Enrique said last week's game between PSG and Bayern was the best game I've ever managed. Now, okay, brilliant attack, but surely as a coach he can't be happy with his defence. They look very vulnerable at the back, PSG. Same issue with Bayern Munich. Too open, too naive at times. And I think
and
Bayern...
Stanisic, the worst player on the field. Easily on the pitch. Easily.
One bit of advice to Bayern, I don't think they can rely only on their comeback capabilities. Bayern have been relying on their comeback capabilities far too often. Look, they've conceded 11 goals in the last 3 games. 3 against Mainz, 5 against PSG, and 3 yesterday against Heidenheim, where they, of course, managed a draw, a lucky draw, when they got the equaliser in the 5th minute. That was so cruel on Heidenheim, incidentally playing their 100th Bundesliga match, Heidenheim. And that has more or less cost them their survival in the Bundesliga. But Bayern, again, risky. They played a B-side, of course, but they can't rely on their comeback capabilities alone. They have to somehow stabilize their defense also on Wednesday.
I agree. And be careful because Paris Saint-Germain will be playing without Hakimi. I think there is no real replacement. I believe that Luis Enrique might adapt João Neves to the right. I don't agree but he already played there for the national team, the Portugal national team, and it worked because Portugal, they won the Nations League with João Neves playing on the right, not playing on the middle, right? And but I think if João Neves is playing on the right, I think for Olis, the guy that has already 50 goal contribution this season, I think it would be not the best rival to stop him physically. João Neves is a fighter. And more than a fighter, he's a fireman. João Neves is everywhere. But I think if he leaves the midfield, okay, you have Fabian Ruiz, who I think is not the same quality as João Neves. I think João Neves is a better player. And you saw the difficulty when Joshua Kimmich and Pavlovic, who did a great game, by the way, above my expectations, Vitinha didn't have that much time with the ball because Pavlovic was always on his shoes. And with the help of João Neves, he got a little bit de-stressed on the second half. But on the first half, Vitinha had a very difficult time, very good pressure from Bayern, and you could see sometimes almost Upamecano playing as the liberal without not even the number six or not a center back. He was playing somewhere in the middle, filling those gaps, and very good. What a great game by Upamecano, one of the best with the Bayern shirt. I think advantage for Bayern with Hakimi not playing because he's a guy that he can run down the flank every time for 90 minutes, which is
Yeah.
going to
Big,
be
big
also Alfonso
disadvantage. Big
Davies' side.
disadvantage. Big
Yeah,
disadvantage
I
for
think it's a
PSG.
yeah,
Now,
yeah. I
I
believe
heard
too.
that Zaire Emery might be playing in Hakimi's position. I don't really mind who plays in that position because Olise is going to get the better of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
Olise is
yeah,
going to win.
definitely.
Doesn't matter who's going to play in that position. I think Olise will be unstoppable on that night. But a lot will depend on the Bayern defense, and a lot will depend on the PSG defense. I heard Julian Draxler in an interview, former PSG player, the German international, who's playing in Qatar at the moment, and his tip was 3-3, which would mean that that PSG go through. Yeah.
Then we hear coaches like Arteta saying, yeah, it's wonderful football. A guy that, with all the respect, won two domestic cups. That's it. No Premier League, no Champions League until now. Let's see. I can bite my tongue. But talking a lot, but saying these guys have fresh players because they play in minor leagues. Well, these minor leagues like France and Germany, they have more clubs that won the Champions League and Arsenal hasn't. This is a problem. And with Arteta spending over £1 billion, billion euros to build a team, try to win a Premier League, which will not be won by City if they fall asleep at the wheel. This is the truth. It's amazing, like a guy like Arteta telling that Luis Enrique and the company, yeah, they're in the semi-final. They could put on a great show, but the players are fresh
Yeah.
because the leagues are minor, and you see
No,
Bayern rotating a little bit.
I don't think he said the leagues are minor. I think he said that they won the title so early that they are rested. I don't
Because of
think
the
he
minor
was
competition.
criticizing the league. No,
I think
I
he's
don't agree there.
criticizing the Farmers League and yeah, Arteta.
No, no, no,
Yeah, he's a
no.
Premier League
I
guy.
don't.
But then when it comes,
Arsenal
yeah, yeah,
looked good yesterday when they beat Fulham 3-0. I think they turned the corner. And if you ask me, I think Arsenal are really going to win the Premier League this season because they finally turned the corner. They look good in Madrid, 1-1 draw against Atletico last week, but that game is still very much open. Atletico winning 2-0 yesterday too, although they brought out a B side or a C side even, but they still won by 2-0. So I think the Premier League is relatively safe for Arsenal, but he may have a point that PSG and Bayern, as we saw yesterday, they rested basically the whole team, and Arsenal had to send out their normal team again to play against Fulham and win 3-0. So it'll be very interesting to see which
but Alex,
two sides get through to the final.
I remember Arsenal having a 9, 10, 11 point advantage. Why didn't he keep it and already won the Premier League?
Injuries.
Ah,
Kai
right, yeah.
Havertz.
Paris has uh, with that much money still have injury problems. That's an
Saka just
excuse.
came back. Saka just came back for Arsenal. Kai Havertz is out again, injured. They've had massive injuries, Arsenal. So
Pep
I think
Guardiola
they've turned
played
the
half of
corner
a
now.
season without defenders. Pep Guardiola played half of the season without the defensive line, and he can win the Premier League on its own. That's just excuses of a poor coach mentality. He's not a winning coach, never will be. From my point of view, if he wins the Champions League and the Premier League, I shut up. But teams like Dortmund, with half of the budget, no, not half, one fifth or 1/6, they already went to the Champions League, put on a fight against Real Madrid in the final, could have won, but Real Madrid is the bigger club, and we talk this off. The teams like Arsenal, the coaches of the Premier League, they always say, you have to prove yourself in the Premier League. Okay, okay, okay. Real Madrid has more Champions League than all English teams combined. Let Arteta know that because when he talks like this, I remember last year when Arsenal beat Real Madrid, they thought they already had the Champions League winner logo on the shirt, and then Paris came in and they had no ideas. They lost to a Farmers League team, a Ligue 1 Uber Eats team, and he had nothing to say at that time. But when he beat and fairly Real Madrid, he was on top of the mountain on the food chain. Well, Sir Mikel Arteta, calm down. Calm down.
No, I've got to defend League. I don't think at all that they're a farmers' league.
Yes.
When you look at the amount of French players who come to the Bundesliga, the amount of French players who go to the Premier League, the French league is a brilliant league for producing young talent. And they keep going non-stop. I'll tell you another interesting observation. I think that when Bundesliga players go to the Premier League, they tend to struggle more than when French players go to the Premier League. Could that be that the French league, Ligue 1, is physically tougher than it's given credit for? And this is why French players in the Premier League, they usually survive very well when they arrive. And that players from the Bundesliga, they tend to struggle, as we saw with Wirtz, as we saw with quite a few players from the Bundesliga. That is an interesting point.
But Alex, on the opposite hand, you have, but on the other hand, you have guys like Erling Haaland coming from BVB, from Dortmund. When he goes to the Premier League, he's going to meet the best defender in the world, Van Dijk. He's going to beat this and this and that. He arrived to City, beat the Premier League goal record in one season, won the FA Cup, Champions League. How about that? Coming from Dortmund
Erling
to win
Haaland
everything.
Erling Haaland is a physical phenomenon. I think he stands out, but I don't think you can use him as a good example for players from the Bundesliga. Players from the Bundesliga, they usually settle down in the Premier League, but they need a little bit longer than French players, and I think that's a really interesting point to delve into.
It depends. You can watch Liverpool, of course. Wirtz is still adapting, but Liverpool is playing horrible this year. But even though with the coach of Liverpool, Adam Slot, saying that Liverpool needed a number 9 elite world class like Isaac, but the guy that is scoring the goals is Ekitike that came from the mid tier Eintracht Frankfurt. Amazing, eh? Marmoush, the effect he had in Frankfurt, the effect he had in Manchester City. Gvardiol jumping from Leipzig to lineup Champions League winner in Manchester City. So the examples are on both ways. It depends on the team and on the players, on the coaches. On the coaches, we saw Gyökeres coming from Sporting and now to Arsenal, not the same player. But you have the opposite. Harry Kane coming from Tottenham to Bayern.
Very good point about Harry Kane. Could it be?
Did he win in the first year? No titles.
Could it be that Bayern have improved the players who came from the Premier League? I mean, let's face it, Kane came from the Premier League. Luis Diaz had a very good career at Liverpool. I mean, we mustn't say that he didn't make it at Liverpool. Luis Diaz did very well at Liverpool. But when he came to Bayern, he became better. Michael Olise at Crystal Palace, would you believe it? With all due respect to Crystal Palace, he comes to Bayern and overnight he becomes a world star. Jamal Musiala, he grew up in England too. Serge Gnabry. Now, all these players developed in England. Big question for you. How did English clubs let these guys leave? Why didn't they recognise their talent? I mean, okay, Kane, we all knew about Kane. But Luis Diaz was let go. Michael Olise was just not recognised. Jamal Musiala was recognised far too late. Gnabry had a difficult time, played well for Arsenal, but improved massively. How come English clubs didn't recognise who they had, which treasures they had?
I think this is a symptom of having too much money, and they don't care about the development of the football player. You can raise this point. Who is the club that produces the best superstars and keeps them on the club? Zero Premier League clubs. They prefer to go to the Bundesliga, Sesko, Xavi Simons, 100 players already in the last maybe 10 years left Bundesliga to the Premier League to earn more money. Nobody believes Nkunku changed from Leipzig to playing in Chelsea because today Leipzig has a better project than Chelsea. And of course, when you have more money, you're tempted to waste it more and not care about the football player. Just load it. How could, for example, we have the situation, Jadon Sancho, he didn't have any space in City. He said this in an interview. He asked Guardiola if he could play, and he said, no, you would have to play in a B team or C teams. And he said, okay, I'm going to Dortmund. What happened in Dortmund? 80 million euro back to Premier League, to United, and the rest, we all know what happened. And there is the lack of patience.
We all know that Manchester United have ruined the careers of quite a few players, I have to say. when we think of Paul
True,
Pogba,
true,
when we
true,
think of Jadon
true,
Sancho. I think it's something to do
true.
with the coaching setup there. They've ruined the careers of some players. Jadon Sancho then went to Aston Villa, wasn't that good. But another
No.
example is, for instance, Marcus Rashford. He left Manchester United and now at Barcelona. I think he's been doing very well at Barcelona.
Yeah, decent, yeah. I don't think
We
he's a
don't really
world-class
know.
player. He never will be, but decent, yeah.
We never know. We don't know if he's going to stay there or not. If Barcelona want to keep him, or he'll go back to Manchester
I
United.
doubt.
Well, I don't advise him to go back to Manchester United. They are in the ascendancy, of course, at the moment. Manchester United, they'll probably be playing in the Champions League. Bruno Fernandes, what a player! But that's a completely different story. We'll be talking about the Portuguese side very soon. Antonio,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
yeah. Thank you, everybody. See you next time. Done.